Hello and welcome to our interview with Fuzz and Tim of Car SOS, which is one of our favourite TV classic car restoration shows. It's a great series, and this one is really special, as you'll find out when you listen to it. But just a proviso, it's just me. Bradley isn't here; he's away somewhere, and at the other end, it's just Fuzz, because Tim, we had to edit this out, but before the interview started, the room in which he was in, the ceiling collapsed. Tim's fine, don't worry about that. But he couldn't take part, and he was very sorry that he couldn't. But don't worry, this is a fantastic interview talking about the cars that we love, and this is a great show. Make sure you're there every Thursday night. Details in the description about where to find it, and yeah, it's all good stuff. Enjoy.
Can I say,
Brilliant.
James, that is what you get for being a cheapskate? Try and do things on the cheap, things fall down around your ears.
Well, I mean, one of my first questions, Series 13, unlucky for some.
Well, it's been lucky for us because we've completed another 10 cars, and so
Yeah.
that's 10 more. That's 10 more, often very rotten old cars that have been repaired and have put back into use, which I think it's a great thing. You know, it's a great thing fixing things, mending things, but also that's 10 people who know how much their family and their friends absolutely love them, and
Yeah.
you know what they mean to them. So I think you know there's a lot of wins out of that run of cars number 121 to number 130.
No, it's absolutely brilliant. And the thing is that, I'm looking at the cars, and, to me, a Mark II MX-5, that only came out last week, didn't it?
Well, to my mind, it did, yeah, because I used to drive one of those as my daily driver. But again, you know, those cars are, well, they're all over 20 years old now. And so, you know, we've got, yeah, that's right, actually, isn't it? So the
Yeah.
2005, I think, was the last one of those. So, you know, they time is moving on, and you know, the development of cars keeps on going, which just shows. I mean, 20 years ago, I was probably being asked what cars of today will be classics of the future, and I'd probably have picked out an MX-5. And here we are speaking now in 2025, and they are definitely classics. Even the third series of MX-5s are stepping into that arena now as well. You know, they can be had for next to nothing, and you know that would be possibly the classic that I would say, you know, if somebody said, what classic should I buy now? What could I get for relatively little money? I'd say get yourself a you know, a Mark III MX5, because they're going to be very loved soon, and they're probably as cheap as they'll ever be. But yeah, it's great. It's brilliant. Even your electric cars of today, they are just waiting in the wings to be classics.
I will look forward to seeing you replacing the battery on those in a few years' time.
It might make life easier.
I'm sure it would be.
Yeah.
Because one thing I'm doing at the moment, future-proof cars. That's the logo I've got behind me.
Yeah.
And this is something that you've very, very much been involved with, really, over the previous 12 series, really. And okay, you're doing God's own work by reuniting people with their old cars, but you're proving a point, aren't you? You're proving the fact that, you know, these cars are going to be around for a very long time.
Well, that's right. I mean, you know, I think there has been, or there was maybe a year or two ago, a little bit of a jittery moment for people with classic cars, because I think they thought that they were going to be legislated off the road,
Mm.
and that also they wouldn't be able to get fuel for them, and so on and so forth. So I think there's been a little bit of a dip, a little bit of a worry. But the fact of the matter is, you can still get a bale of hay for a horse, can't you? And you can still get a lump of coal for a steam engine. So I'm absolutely, and also with synthetic fuels now, I'm absolutely positive there is a cleaner way forward for our internal combustion engined cars. And yes, maybe in 20 years' time or 30 years' time, the fuel might be on a day-to-day basis more expensive sort of as part of a person's income than it is now. But these cars will by that time be enthusiasts' machines, and so we'll be able to use them probably in the way that we use our classic cars now, not as everyday classics.
Yeah.
A few people do. I whenever I'm at home, I try and use a classic rather than a modern car, simply because, well, I like to exercise my cars, and also I like having a bit of fun with them as well. But I don't think there's any worry about our cars going out of use. The worst thing that will happen is if the roads just break in half and we can't drive them on the roads. The only thing we'll be able to drive then are tanks.
Yeah. Well, you've got some nice commercial vehicles that might be able to cope with it. But again, I'm looking through your list of cars, and it is quite fascinating. And a Wolseley Hornet 6. I mean, I just thought, yeah, that's a car that's even older than me.
Yeah, well, there we are. So, and much older than me too. It was an old car when I was born. So I think that one was 1933 or 34. So you've got an example of a car there that came with a lot of advanced technology for its time. For instance, it had an overhead cam engine. So instantly, you've got a great leap forward compared to the side valve engine cars that were around at the time. And yes, that particular kind of setup did need a lot more maintenance than people were used to, but it came with loads more power per cubic centimeter than any other car of that sort of capacity, and with 6 cylinders on the go at the same time. The reason why there are so few of those saloon versions of the Wolseley Hornet 6 around is because everybody took the bodies off them and turned them into fast little specials, because they are an absolute prime candidate for that. So it was really lovely to work on I suppose really you would call that early post-vintage car. Great to work on it and not to be chopping it about, and to put it back into its original spec.
Yeah. I mean, I think you've got some sort of very historically important cars. I mean, it's a bit like the beach buggy, which I think people overlook, but actually, in cultural terms, that was a giant leap forward, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. It was the car that it was one of the first moments where cars gained a second life, a new purpose. So suddenly you could have a rotten old Beetle, but then you could do a little bit of work on the floor pack, get rid of the body, and sorry, my phone keeps pinging away here. I thought I had it on silent. There we go. I have now. You could have a rotten old car, but suddenly you could give it a whole new lease of life, and you could do it outside your house, on the driveway, on the road outside your house, on a bit of waste ground. Suddenly you had a kind of a hip car. And really, I suppose that kind of took the baton on from the early post-war period, where you had people making sort of fast little sports cars out of Austin Sevens and and Ford, sit up and beg Fords and stuff like that. So it kind of went on from there. But I think those beach buggies have been overlooked for probably 2 or maybe 3 decades now. I think people thought they're just like a bit like flared trousers. It's like they every now and then people have a little look at them, but eventually they realise when they get soggy bell bottoms why they fell out of love with them. But I think the beach buggy is back to stay, and I think they're a great fun car. And I think people are less concerned about how people are viewed, when they're driving their cars now. You can have a beach buggy. It can be in a massive flake, sort of purple paint, but they look great. They brighten up people's days, and actually they're a lot of fun. I totally get them now. When I was a kid, I used to have model beach buggies, and they used to be the thing, in the late 60s, early 70s. And I can see that fun again now. And I can see also that it'd be a car that anybody from the age of 17 to 70 could get in and feel completely at home in.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, you also acknowledge the sports utility vehicle market as well, because we've got a Mark One Disco, which I think was probably the best version of them all, because I owned later ones that were terrible.
Yeah. Well,
Which was
I owned a Series One. I should never have I should never have got rid of that car.
yeah,
I had a Series One, and I was going down to the tip. I'd filled it up with rubbish, and I'd done nothing to that vehicle for about 100,000 miles. And of course, the cam belt went, but it's not catastrophic because it just bends the push rods. But
yeah.
it did it about a mile away from my favourite pub, and with a full load of rubbish on board. So my son and I got out, walked back to the pub, and I sold it to the pub landlord, who did a little sideline in moving on time expired cars, and I swapped it for I think it was 300 pints. I thought it
No,
was quite a
really,
lot,
that's
but
pretty good.
he got some good money for it. He also took all the rubbish to the tip, and but that vehicle is still on the road today.
Wow.
I think they are brilliant. They are wonderful. They make a great daily driver. They're an excellent second car even now. And okay, so they rot, but do the repairs, protect them, and have fun with them again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the other thing you've got is the Suzuki Jimny, which I think has been massively overrated and is extremely capable, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's massively underrated, I would say. Yeah, it's I took I took a relatively new one around a 4x4, a dedicated 4x4 sort of track and site. Man, that thing could do stuff that I was so surprised about. I went in thinking that the Suzuki Jimny was, well, you see them around, and there's a great resurgence for them now. I see them everywhere, perhaps because I've been working on one, but yeah, so I see them everywhere. And I just thought, well, it's a little 4x4 that, people just want a 4x4 to go to the shops in. It's not a real 4x4. It doesn't have any real capability. Man, that thing is absolutely knockout. I've been places in the Suzuki Jimny that I've never been in a Land Rover. Dare I say it? It's a bad thing for me to say, but man, one of those little Jimneys, try them out. They'll surprise you.
Excellent. And you've also, I mean, you go to the exotic as well. We go Ferrari 308, which arguably is the last pretty one. I don't know whether that's a controversial thing to say.
Well, I didn't think that Ferrari 308s were very pretty until recently, and then so that Ferraris have a tendency to creep up upon people, in that it's just like, oh no, that's just not a car I would like, and then suddenly they just kind of get old enough to be sort of retro enough to warrant a second glance, and that's what I think the 308 has done now. And I think your 355s and all those kinds of things will sort of pick up from where they've left off. I've never been a Ferrari fan. I was horribly prejudiced against them and the people that drove them. Yes, I did think that. But actually, I drove a 308. Blimey, I'd gone in there thinking, well, these are kit cars, really, kit cars with a fancy badge on. But man, that thing handled like nothing else I've driven. Suddenly, I was throwing it into corners that I wouldn't have thrown other cars into, no matter with a low build like that or not. It was capable. It had the right amount of grunt, and I'm not a great fan of flat plane crank V8s, because aren't they just really two 4-cylinder engines running at the same time? They are, and that's why they sound like two 4-cylinder engines. They're not. It's not that burble of a V8. You haven't got sort of 8 pops for every 2 revolutions. You've only got really 4 pops for every 2 revolutions, in exactly the same way as you get from a 4-cylinder engine. But they've got a lot of grunt, and so I can see the point. Going around mountain passes and up hills and stuff like that. What a great car! And Yeah, I was surprised, and yeah, I maybe one or two people pointed at me and went, "Look at that," and but I felt entirely comfortable in that car, and I can see the point now. So even with its caramel coloured seats, which I'm never a fan of, caramel, white, cream seats, really they spoil a car for me. But I didn't even notice them while I was driving that. So yeah, but I can tell you that that car, people
Yeah.
might say, "What are you doing Ferraris for on Car SOS?" You know, come on, this is, you know, that's not the sort of car that normal people can afford. Um, when we picked it up, we did that one at Rick Woods, because Rick Woods is set up for being able to do supercars basically, and to manufacture any parts that may be unavailable with his sort of like wonderful, you know, sort of multi-million pound machinery that he has on board, you know, in his restoration shop. So we took the car in and we said, "What do you reckon that car is worth right now?" And he looked at it and he went, "9 grand." That's probably what it was worth. Really, really on a commercial basis, 9 grand. I mean, yeah, you probably get twice that from you know, from an enthusiast, but it means that, okay, 9 grand's a lot of money, 18 grand's a lot more money. But it does mean that if you are if you really want a Ferrari and you've saved a lot and done everything, they are just about reachable, just about tangible. And so, and I think that is often the case for Ferraris. There's always one that people say, "Oh, I don't want that one," and then that's then easy pickings for people who don't have that much money but would love to be able to say that they've got a Ferrari. Ownership is easy. Restoration is not necessarily that easy, and cost of parts. Well, you've got a Ferrari, all the parts come with a Ferrari price tag. And so you know, you've got to have some serious capabilities if you take one on, but it's worth having a go.
Absolutely. And was it straightforward to work on, or was there lots of little Italian niggles that you had to deal with?
I don't suppose it's not so much Italian niggles. I mean, it's like sourcing the parts is difficult.
Yeah.
So a lot of parts had to be made, a lot of body panels and all that kind of thing. Also, you know, I think there's a lot of you know, there's people who own Ferraris wait in the queue for the, you know, to get their parts and and be able to do stuff. And we in Car SOS are in the business of queue jumping in a way, and so it's very difficult for Ferrari suppliers to you know, part suppliers and Ferrari themselves to say, actually, it's going to be okay. We'll let you go first instead of all these people who've spent many hundreds of thousands of pounds or even millions of pounds with us. So we have to be aware of that. So we had to, you know, with the guys at Rick Woods, the reason that we did it at Rick Woods, they've got the facilities to do pretty much everything there. So it meant that nothing really would get in our way. So we were able, you know, all the engine work, sorted all that out, all the mechanical work, suspension, body. I mean, it was so rotten. Probably if it had been left in that damp garage for another year, it would have needed to have gone on a jig, at which point you are back to Ferrari then. And that's when it's not happening. So you know, it was just about held together enough for us to be able to do it.
Great. Okay, I see that Sal's back, so I may have to go, but I must say I haven't missed Tim at all. I mean, it's been great, really.
Well, you know, don't tell him that, but nor have I. So, but no, don't say that. He's very sensitive. He's a lovely chap, and he literally has. He's taken on this old flat, and he's started poking around on the ceiling. So it wasn't the roof; it was the ceiling, and the ceiling's come down around his ears. He was absolutely covered in crap. Which, yeah, I mean, there you go. But that's because he's too tight to get anybody to do it for him. And now I know exactly what he's going to be doing for the next 3 months. It's going to be rebuilding that flat and that ceiling.
Absolutely. Right. So we've established that, yeah, there's great cars for people to see, and you've also got an added celebrity element as well. So that's another reason for people to turn up and see
That's
their
right. And
stars.
can I say that the people who've appeared, the celebrities who've appeared, have done it of their own volition, and they haven't charged us or anything like that. They've come on and done stuff out of the kindness of their own hearts. I mean, take Jeremy Clarkson. I mean, who would invite a coach load of 50 people down to their backyard and stand down everybody who's working for them while somebody else from a different TV show comes in and operates out of their premises? Well, that shows a great generosity, I think. And so it just goes to show that people might not quite be what they appear to be at first glance. And I think that was a really cool thing that he did, and we're ever so grateful to him.
Excellent. All right, that's a very good place to finish. But Fuzz, I very much appreciate your time.
Pleasure, James. Good to see you.
Please like and subscribe.